Prince Harry and his wife's entire lives over the course of the last decade or so can be viewed as an exercise in intimidation by the UK media. Think of all the people you know who've got strong opinions about Prince Harry, a military hero, or indeed about his wife, a successful actress. Think of all the people you know in your life who've got strong opinions about them. Oh, no, I don't like them, or I don't trust her. Where do you think those opinions came from? You can malign and demonise innocent people so completely and comprehensively that you've probably got family members who think that they have a bead upon these two characters, while Paul Dacre's personal history will be completely new to them. They'll know nothing about the man responsible for newspaper headlines that wouldn't have been out of place in 1930s Germany. And yet Harry and his wife have been turned into, or the massive attempt to turn them into, pariahs, public enemies. That's how it works. It's also, of course, how the mafia works.
All right, now that you've heard that clip, I want you to sit with it for just a second, because that wasn't a random radio rant. That wasn't hyperbole. That wasn't someone being dramatic for clicks. That was James O'Brien calmly, methodically describing something that has been hiding in plain sight for years. And notice how uncomfortable it made people. Because when someone finally names the behavior out loud, suddenly the whole game changes. Prince Harry walking into court today is not just a legal moment. It's a cultural moment. It's a reckoning moment. And James O'Brien didn't just defend Harry, he exposed the mechanism that has been used against him and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, for over a decade. An exercise in intimidation. That phrase alone should stop you in your tracks. Not media scrutiny, not robust debate, not the price of fame. Intimidation. And once you understand that, everything else suddenly makes sense. James starts by asking a deceptively simple question. Think about all the people you know who have strong opinions about Prince Harry or Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. Think about how confident they are in those opinions, how certain, how absolute. I don't like them. I don't trust her. He's ungrateful. She's manipulative. Now ask the follow-up question James quietly plants in your mind. Where did those opinions come from? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of those people have never watched a full interview. They haven't read court filings. They haven't followed the timeline. They haven't examined corrections, retractions, or legal judgments. They've consumed headlines. They've absorbed repetition. They've been steeped in a narrative that was delivered daily, aggressively, and with total confidence. And repetition is one of the most powerful psychological tools there is. You don't need something to be true if it's familiar. You just need it to feel normal. You just need it to feel accepted. You just need to hear it often enough that questioning it feels strange. That's how you end up with people who just have a feeling about Meghan. That's how you end up with people who think they know Harry's character. That's not intuition, that's conditioning. James makes another point that's absolutely devastating if you really think about it. He points out that while the public has been encouraged to obsess over Harry and Meghan, to analyze their body language, their tone, their intentions, they know virtually nothing about the men shaping the headlines. Most people couldn't pick Paul Dacre out of a lineup. They don't know his history, they don't know his editorial legacy, they don't know the culture he fostered, they don't know the language that was normalized under his watch. But they do know how to sneer at Meghan. They do know how to roll their eyes at Harry. That didn't happen by accident. James's reference to headlines that wouldn't have looked out of place in 1930s Germany is not casual, and it's not reckless. It's a warning about dehumanization, about scapegoating, about the way media can prime a population to see certain people as problems rather than humans. Because history doesn't repeat itself the same way. It rhymes. And the first step is always language. Make them seem suspicious, make them seem ungrateful, make them seem dangerous to tradition, make them seem like they don't belong. Harry and Meghan weren't just criticized, they were othered. And James nails it when he says there was a massive attempt to turn them into pariahs, public enemies. Not because they broke laws, not because they abused power, not because they harmed anyone, but because they refused to play their assigned roles quietly. Let's be very clear here. Prince Harry did not commit some unforgivable sin. He married a woman he loved, He protected his family, he spoke honestly about trauma, he refused to allow history to repeat itself unchecked. And for that, the punishment was relentless. Smear after smear, leak after leak, anonymous sources treated as gospel, corrections buried, lies repeated long after being disproven. And this is where the mafia comparison lands so uncomfortably well. Because how does organized intimidation work? You make an example. You isolate the target. You send a message to anyone watching. You demonstrate what happens when someone steps out of line. And that's exactly what happened here. Harry and Meghan weren't just attacked, they were used as a warning to others, to future partners, to other royals, to anyone thinking about challenging the system. This is what happens when you don't comply. James saying that's how the mafia works wasn't exaggeration, it was structural analysis. Now, fast forward to today. Prince Harry walks into court. No press circus led by him, no dramatic statements, no grandstanding. Just a man using the legal system to demand accountability. And suddenly, very suddenly, the same press that couldn't stop talking about him seems nervous. Coverage becomes cautious. Language becomes vague. Speculation replaces certainty. Because courts are inconvenient places for bullies. In a courtroom, headlines don't matter. Tone doesn't matter. Vibes don't matter. Evidence matters. And that's why this moment matters so much. Because Harry isn't arguing about feelings, he's arguing about unlawful behavior, about phone hacking, about surveillance, about information gathering that crossed legal and ethical lines. This isn't about hurt pride, it's about proof. And that's why James O'Brien's commentary hits like a thunderclap. He's not defending Harry because he's royal, he's defending the principle that no one, absolutely no one, should be subjected to systematic intimidation by an industry that refuses to regulate itself. And here's the part the UK press really doesn't want to confront. The public is starting to notice. People are asking why the narrative never evolves, why the same talking points get recycled, why certain stories disappear when they don't fit, why Harry is always framed as the problem rather than the practices he's exposing. James O'Brien quietly invites listeners to interrogate their own beliefs, to ask, did I arrive at this opinion on my own, or was it delivered to me? That question alone is revolutionary, because once people start pulling on that thread, the whole sweater unravels. You realize how many facts were actually opinions, how many sources were actually agendas, how much outrage was engineered. And suddenly, Harry doesn't look irrational, he looks principled, persistent, prepared. Which is terrifying to an industry that relies on ridicule to maintain control. Because ridicule only works when the target internalizes it. Harry didn't. He didn't collapse. He didn't retreat. He didn't apologize for telling the truth. He left. He rebuilt. He sued. And now he's standing in court. Not angry, not chaotic, not flailing, but focused. That's why certain commentators are so desperate to reframe this as Harry obsessed with the past, or Harry unable to move on. Because acknowledging that this is about justice would require acknowledging wrongdoing. James O'Brien did something brave in that clip. He didn't hide behind neutrality, he didn't do the both sides dance, he didn't pretend this was just a difference of opinion. He called intimidation what it is. And that's why his words matter more than 1,000 tabloid headlines. Because once intimidation is named, it loses power. And that's the real reason this case scares people. Not because Harry might win, but because even if he doesn't, the process itself exposes too much. It forces questions. It forces transparency. It forces reflection. And an industry that has thrived in darkness hates the light. So as this courtroom showdown begins, remember what you heard at the start of this video. Remember that this didn't begin with lawsuits. It began with stories, with language, with narratives repeated until they hardened into truth. James O'Brien didn't accuse the press of acting like the mafia for drama. He did it because the tactics align, the outcomes align, and the panic at accountability aligns. And here's the final irony. The same people who accuse Harry of wanting attention are desperate for this case to go away quietly. The same people who scream free press panic when faced with legal scrutiny. The same outlets that demand transparency from others resist it for themselves. Prince Harry walking into court today isn't an act of vengeance, it's an act of refusal. A refusal to accept intimidation as normal, a refusal to allow lies to calcify into legacy, a refusal to stay silent so others can stay comfortable. And that's why this moment matters. Not just for Harry, not just for Meghan, but for anyone who has ever been told to shut up, fall in line, and accept mistreatment because that's just how it is. James O'Brien said the quiet part out loud. Now the rest of us are watching what happens next.